So I've spent $7 million in Facebook ads for my own business, and I've turned it into $33 million in sales. Now, if you think that's BS, I would think it's BS. Here's proof. Here's just one account where I've spent over $483,000 on just one offer. And look, I know there's a ton of gurus out there that give all this advice on Facebook ads, but they've never really spent any real big money on Facebook ads. So I'm gonna share 5 of the biggest lessons I learned of spending my own money on my own business, and these will work for you whether you're only spending a little bit of money on ads or spending a lot. All right, number 1, the actual ad copy and creative mean very little to the success of the campaign. Now, I know that sounds crazy and kind of stupid, but let me explain. So I recently saw an ad for an offer about how to stop yelling at your kids as a parent. And the ad had a comparison between 2 brain scans. One was a brain scan of a kid just being talked to, and another was a brain scan of a kid being yelled at. And when you see the difference between those 2, you're like, whoa. I saw another ad for the same offer with a mom hugging her child, and then a mom yelling at her child and the child all messed up about it. And this hit home for me deeply as a parent, because if you're anything like me, there's been a moment where your kid has just been out of control and you've yelled at them, and then later I'm like, oh my God, I could have handled that better. I didn't have to yell at him, and then you feel this guilt and this shame, and it's just a really big pain point. So that offer is absolutely amazing. It's pretty hard to make a bad ad for that offer because the pain points are so deep, the audience is so wide, and there's so many people who would want that. However, if you have an offer that isn't good, you could be the best copywriter in the world, and I'm sorry, you cannot polish a turd. You can put sprinkles on it, glitter, maybe a little bit of bow. At the end of the day, it's still shit. So think of a great offer like a great recipe. It doesn't matter what type of plate you put it on, if it's a green plate, a red plate, if it's a paper plate. Good food is good food, the end. And the principle here is when the offer is good, it's almost impossible to write bad copy. But when the offer is bad, great copy won't even save you. Number 2, color psychology is money psychology. So here's how a simple color change made one of my clients tens of thousands of dollars. And this isn't just a theory, this actually happened. So once an offer is good, little things can make a big difference. So I have a private client, his name is Josh, and he was selling tickets to a virtual event. And he was struggling to sell them, his ads were not converting, and because he's a private client, I hopped in the ads dashboard just to take a look. And so I noticed one of the creatives was him in a jacket speaking at an event. And the ad cost was not so good. So I took the image, I threw it in Photoshop, and I made several different variations of the ad by changing the color of the jacket. I quickly threw up different variations, and lo and behold, the red jacket was the winner, and it had a substantially lower ad cost than the rest of the jackets. I did this same strategy with several other ads, and lo and behold, we ended up selling 58 tickets at the last minute for his event. And several of those people ended up buying his $15,000 offer, which made him tens of thousands of dollars, all because I changed the color of a shirt. And look, this is why movie posters have such contrasting colors like orange and teal, because it captures the attention of a person through color so that they can then go, oh, well, what's the movie about? Oh, that's about something cool. I'll go watch that. Here, I'll buy a ticket. And so the principle here is that the brain is primitive, and you must first capture attention on the primitive level, like, ooh, jacket. And then you can open up to the profound, where they actually read your ad copy and go, oh, I'm interested in this, click. Capture attention on the primitive level before you can open up to the profound. Lesson number 3, the dashboard lies. The truth is, your Facebook ads are making you more money than you think. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, Dan, the numbers don't lie. Yes, they do. Think about this. You see an ad on your phone. You click on it, and it's something you're very interested in, but there's a 10, 15, 20-minute video that you have to watch. And you're out, you're busy. That's why you're on your phone. So you Slack it to yourself, you text it to yourself, you take the link and put it in your notepad, whatever. You go home later, you open up your laptop, and you start watching the video there. Or maybe you even took a screenshot of it, and then you Googled the person later, went on their social media, went on their YouTube, and checked them out there. I don't care what tracking software you use, it is impossible to track something like that. And here's how I know this to be true. I used to just spend money on ads and then look at how much money I made and just left it at that. But then I started getting people in my head telling me, you gotta track, you gotta track, you gotta track, you gotta track. And so I started drilling down and using softwares and figuring out where the campaigns came from and where I made money. And I started running less ads because the dashboards told me that they weren't profitable. But then I also noticed that overall, I made less money in my company. And then one day I go to Sam Ovens' mastermind and he tells me, he says, the best way to track is look at what you spent, look at what's in your bank account at the end of the month, and just go by that. Now, Alex Becker was actually there and he didn't like this. And so he literally got up in a huff, ran off and created Hyros. But I'll tell you this, for me personally, every time I have spent less money on ads that I have thought were not performing, I have made less money as a whole. And that's because people will go check you out. They will get on your email list. They will buy from another source, but they might have originally came from the ad. So here's one way that you can actually have a happy medium between these two extremes. I create a separate funnel just for ads. Any ads I run go to that funnel and that funnel alone. That means whoever buys, the amount of upsells they take, the average order value, all directly from ads. Then my other funnels are for social, email, etc. This allows me to see how much I am making from a direct ad click to the funnel. As long as I'm close to break even, I am happy because I know I'm building my brand, I'm getting customers, and I'm gonna sell them something more expensive later in my email. So I am fine with that. And I also don't have to go crazy on tracking because at the end of the day, I can look at how much did I spend on my ads, how much did this funnel and this funnel alone make, and I pretty much know. And I always thought about this like looking down at the ocean from a plane, because when you see the waves going in one direction, what you don't realize is below that are layers and layers of currents that are going in all different directions. And so you're only seeing what's happening on the surface. And so the principle here is track the tide, not the waves. Don't go crazy on attribution. Look at overall business growth. Lesson number 4, scaling is all about repetition. The biggest ad campaigns in history simply say the same thing over and over and over. Now, maybe you're thinking, wait, wouldn't that get boring? Not if you do it right. One great example is the commercials from Dos Equis beer, the most interesting man in the world campaign. The core message in all of those ads is, this is a beer for interesting people. And so the way that they do that is they start the ad out where the most interesting man in the world is doing something really cool, like going on a safari or climbing Mount Everest or fighting tigers in the friggin' Africa or something. And the narrator says, he does this, he climbs the Alps, he does this, he is the most interesting man in the world. And then it cuts to the guy saying, I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I drink Dos Equis. This structure is the same every single commercial. All they do is pick a different cool thing that the most interesting man in the world is doing. And they can rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. When you spend money on ads, eventually the ad fatigues and a winning ad will stop working. So you need a new ad to replace it. If you're trying to constantly come up with new ideas, you're gonna run out of ideas and your ads are gonna go to crap. What you need to do is come up with one message that you can say over and over and over again in different ways. And if you can do that, you will never run out of ad ideas that work. And if you never run out of ad ideas that work, you won't have to worry about ad fatigue. And if you don't worry about ad fatigue, you can scale. It's that simple. It's like telling your favorite joke. The joke stays the same, but maybe you adjust it a little bit depending on different audience or different parties you're at. And the principle here is instead of finding new things to say, find one thing to say in many different ways. All right, number 5, the nut and bolt strategy. If you want to make millions of dollars, stop trying to solve big problems. Now, I know that sounds incredibly counterintuitive, but hear me out. Imagine you're a life coach and you run an ad and you're like, hey, I'm gonna fix your whole life. The first thing they're gonna think is, how is this person qualified to help me fix my whole life? If you are Tony Robbins and you have pictures of yourself talking in front of thousands of people and you've been on TV and you have all this authority, then it's pretty reasonable. But if nobody knows who you are and you're brand new or you have a small or no audience, it's going to be a big deal for you to convince them of that. You're going to need authority and credibility. However, if you instead choose to solve a small nut and bolt problem, you don't really require a ton of authority and credibility. And once you solve that problem, you can build trust and authority with your customer through the experience you have with them rather than talking about your experience. So here's an example. Back when I first got started, I sold a $1,000 Facebook ads course. Now, I did not have a lot of authority or credibility. Nobody knew who I was. So I created this little course called Pixel Hero, and it was $37. And the core promise was simple. Hey, you're confused by how to install your Facebook pixel. Give me $37 and in 20 minutes, I'll walk you through it. It'll be installed, good to go. When they bought that offer, they didn't really need to worry about if I was an authority or not because I was solving such a small nut and bolt problem. It didn't care. It was, okay, 20 minutes, he'll show me, great. But when they got into that offer, I gave them more value than what they expected. I built trust through the experience with them rather than talking about my experience, and thus they ascended and bought the $1,000 course quite easily. And that $1,000 course made over $10 million from my business. Here's a theoretical example. Let's say you're a fitness coach and you sell them a Excel sheet that allows them to track their meals and macros that they can just plug it in, or an intermittent fasting tracker, or just something small like that. They buy that for $7 or $10, and then you give them even more value, showing them that you can help them get the body they want, which is the bigger problem. And then they ascend much easier to that bigger offer. You will have a lot easier time selling that small nut and bolt offer through ads than solving the big problem, which requires so much authority and credibility to make work. It's like asking somebody to marry you on the first date rather than asking for their number. Smaller commitments lead to bigger ones. And the principle here is solve a small, specific problem before trying to solve the big one. Now, if you found this video helpful, I have two amazing free resources for you. First, you can download my Tony Robbins pitch breakdown. It is a line-by-line breakdown of why he said what he said in one of his greatest pitches. You can take these tactics and use them for your own business. The second one is another YouTube video I have where I break down the exact pitch blueprint that I used to grow to over $30 million for my own business, and you can use that same blueprint for yours as well. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.